Looking for progress on the environment? Welcome to Bending the Curve, where we highlight successes, achievements, and results. Here are 6 stories we're tracking this week. First, we have a story from the New York Times. Scientists have tweaked the global warming outlook, according to the headline. Scientists are dialing back their worst case scenarios for how hot the world might get from climate change, according to the story. Now, as you know, climate scientists look at worst and best case scenarios. The various models show what the worst thing can happen or the best thing that might happen given global warming. And they're finding that the worst case scenario is becoming implausible, as the story says. The worst case said that the world could warm by 5 degrees Celsius or 9 degrees Fahrenheit by the end of the century. But it looks like the latest data and models are showing that the worst case scenario is now 3.5 degrees Celsius, or just over 6 degrees Fahrenheit, and that the likelier range of warming is between 2.5 to about 3 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. Quoting now, renewable sources of energy like solar and wind power are becoming cheaper, and electric vehicles are becoming more affordable and more reliable. Some climate policies, such as requiring industries to rely less on fossil fuels, have also started to show results, thus, the reduction in the worst case scenario. So, we're breathing just a little bit easier, but we still have to be very vigilant about climate change. The next story comes from Canary Media, an environmental news source. It's noting in its headline, soaring gas prices have drivers turning to EVs, but not in the United States. Now, because of the Iran war, gas prices are spiking. We all see that every day when we drive past our local filling station. And in Europe, EV sales were 27% higher this April than the same month last year, according to this Canary Media story. Rising gasoline prices fueled this surge, according to a think tank, as did the increasing availability of cheap Chinese EV imports. Now, if you live in America, you know that these imports are not available. The current administration has slapped a 100% tariff on these vehicles, as well as national security related rules, which essentially means that these Chinese cars are not available in the US, even though shopping sites such as Cars.com and Car Gurus say searches for EVs have jumped since the Iran war began and the spike in gas prices. Also in Canary Media, there's a story that's headlined, Another First for Renewables, Wind and Solar Out-Generate Natural Gas in April. It says it's the first month when wind and solar combined to produce more electricity than natural gas did. And this is according to numbers tracked by a think tank called Ember. Last year, the story says the world met 75% of its new electricity demand with solar alone, and the remainder with other forms of carbon-free energy. Now, as we all know, king coal, as the story calls it, the coal industry, is still generating far more electricity worldwide than wind and solar. But the story notes the trend is against coal, and, quote, coal should watch its back, or it might lose its crown, or it's probably going to lose its crown. So let's move on to renewables, okay? And this dovetails nicely with a story in the earth.org, on the earth.org website called 5 Renewable Energy Myths the data has finally put to rest. Now, the myth number 5 is really what's relevant here. It says that the transition from fossil fuels to renewables is happening too slowly. It's calling that a myth. It notes that in China, in 2025, in May 2025, just that month, it added 93 gigawatts of solar capacity in a single month. That's a rate equivalent to roughly 100 solar panels per second. Combined wind and solar capacity in the country surpassed total thermal power capacity for the first time in early 2025. It's a myth that we're happening, we're moving towards renewables too slowly. Of course, we could always move faster, but it's proceeding apace. And progressives who concern themselves about energy transition ought to take a look at these numbers and take heart. And for one thing, Asia is the place, according to the story, where the transformation is taking place the fastest. In 2025, 74% of the total new renewable capacity added globally was in Asia. So thank you, Asian countries, including China. Now, changing a little bit to other environmental news, the website InsideClimateNews.org has a nice piece titled Bit of Good News for Right Whales. Now, if you follow oceanography at all, an endangered species, you know that the North Atlantic right whale is perhaps the most critically endangered whale species on the planet. In 1932, it was hunted to near extinction. There were just 20 to 50 individual northern right whales swimming around in the North Atlantic. They were protected that year, and since then, the population has rebounded to about 340 individuals. Doesn't sound like much, but that is a huge increase over just less than a century. The story is reporting that this year, um, 23 calves were born to females in the small, endangered North Atlantic right whale population. That's a big jump over previous years, where some years there were no calves born, a handful in other years. This year, 23 calves were born. Now, not every one of those calves will survive to adulthood, but some will, and scientists believe that this could signal perhaps a final good rebound for the protected North Atlantic right whale. Still a lot of challenges, such as habitat, and the food source is moving north as the currents change and the global warming affects ocean temperatures. But the future, at least in the short term, looks pretty good for the northern right whale. And finally, we wanted to make note of an internship for journalism students at the nonprofit website Carbon Brief. They're based in the UK. They've set up a journalism internship that is based in London that does a couple of things, one of which is it actually pays a wage, the London living wage. That's not very frequent in journalism circles, as I can tell you from personal experience. So check out this internship at Carbon Brief if you're interested in a career in environmental journalism. Thanks for joining us on Bending the Curve. Tell us about a story you think is important. In the meantime, like, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell for our next edition.